My husband took me to a rooftop dinner, claiming it was to celebrate us. His mistress arrived in red, taking the seat next to him as if I were the intruder. When the waiter bent down to pour the wine, I recognized the tremble in his voice. It was my brother. But this wasn't about throwing a drink. It was about cameras, fake contracts, and a setup designed to bury us both. My name is Luna Flores, and I am 32 years old. I am sitting in a corner booth at the Elysian, the velvet a deep, bruised purple against my back. 20 stories below, Houston glitters, a sprawling map of lights that seems indifferent to the dramas playing out above it. Up here, the air is thin and engineered to smell like success. I can smell seared ribeye, expensive perfume, and the sharp zest of gin. Tiny golden lights are strung between potted olive trees, casting everyone in a warm, dishonest glow. The sound is a symphony of wealth, the delicate clink of heavy crystal, the low murmur of men discussing markets, the sharp, bright laughter of women who have never worked a day in their lives. It is a stage, a perfectly set stage for an execution. I just didn't know I was the one scheduled to die. My husband, Damien Cole, slides into the seat opposite me. He is, as always, flawless. His suit is a precise charcoal gray, his hair perfectly styled, his watch a discreet gleam of platinum worth more than my mother's house. He smiles, and the smile is bright enough to power the entire building. A surprise dinner, he had said earlier today, his voice so smooth it was slippery, to talk about our future. Luna. A cold knot had formed in my stomach even then. Damien's surprises are never gifts. They are announcements, carefully packaged directives. The hostess returns, her smile fixed. She is followed by a woman. This woman is not the hostess. She is tall, poured into a silk dress the color of a fresh wound, arterial red. She moves with a liquid, predatory confidence, her eyes locked only on Damien. He stands up. It's a small movement, but it hits me like a slap. He never stands for me. He pulls out the chair right next to him, the one that should have remained empty. She slides into it, the silk whispering against the velvet. Luna, Damien says. His voice is casual as if he were ordering wine. This is Camille, my closest associate. Camille. I know the name from his calendar. A name that appeared with increasing frequency over the past 6 months. Closest associate. She turns her smile on me. It is quick, sharp, and dismissive. An assessment. Then, without breaking eye contact, she places her hand high on Damien's thigh, her red-nailed fingers tracing the seam of his expensive trousers. It is not a gesture of friendship. It is an act of blatant ownership. Damien doesn't flinch. He doesn't move her hand. He doesn't deny it. He simply keeps smiling at me, waiting. The restaurant sounds vanish. The clinking glasses, the music, the distant traffic all gone. The smell of steak is suddenly thick and nauseating. It feels as if someone has reached into my chest and pulled the plug on my heart, leaving it silent and heavy. This is not an associate. This is his mistress. I stare at her hand on his leg. I can feel the blood draining from my face, the heat of humiliation rising in my neck. Damien leans forward, steepling his perfect fingers on the white tablecloth. He speaks softly, as if explaining a complex financial concept to a very slow child. I wanted us to talk about this like adults, he says, his voice reasonable, about what this marriage is going to look like, moving forward, like adults. He brings his lover to our anniversary dinner and expects me to discuss the future of our marriage, as if I am the one being immature, the one failing to grasp the new terms and conditions. I try to find my voice. I try to find the air. My throat has closed. I am swallowing the acid of my own shame, trying to hold on to the fragments of my composure, when a shadow falls over the table. A male voice, tight and cracking, asks, still or sparkling water for the table. The voice is wrong. It is rough, out of place among the smooth tones of the Elysian. It's a voice I know better than my own. My head snaps up. I'm looking directly into a pair of terrified brown eyes. Eyes I have known my entire life. eyes that are supposed to be hundreds of miles away in Colorado, trying to piece his life back together. It is my brother, Noah Flores. He is standing there in a crisp, cheap-looking black waiter's uniform, a white apron tied around his waist. Damien's reaction is a masterpiece of calculated surprise. He lets his eyebrows raise just slightly. Then, a slow, cold smile spreads across his face. It is not a smile of amusement. It is a smile of absolute chilling control. "Well, what a coincidence," Damien says, his voice dripping with false wonder. "Noah, so this is your brother, Luna. How fascinating." He looks Noah up and down, a deliberate, insulting appraisal, taking in the uniform, the sweat on his temple, the tremor in his hand. At least he found some honest work. Damien continues, twisting the knife, enjoying the spectacle. After all that mess back then. He says it loud enough for Camille to hear clearly. He is intentionally, cruelly, referencing the trouble, the arrest 2 years ago, the rehab, the single biggest shame Noah has been fighting to overcome. I watch my brother's shoulders slump. He lowers his eyes, the color draining from his face. He is trapped, pinned by my husband's casual cruelty. "Damien," I whisper, but the word has no air behind it. Noah's hand trembles as he reaches for the wine bottle Damien had pre-ordered. He still won't look at me, as he leans across me to place a bread plate. His knuckles brush my hand. It's a clumsy movement, deliberately clumsy. He slides a tiny, tightly rolled piece of paper under the edge of my plate. It's gone in a second, hidden by the porcelain. My fingers find it, a small, damp wad. I keep my hands in my lap. I wait until Damien is laughing at something Camille whispered in his ear, her red lips close to his, under the table. I uncrumple the note. 4 words, scrawled in Noah's familiar, frantic handwriting. "Don't react. They are watching." A different kind of ice floods my veins, colder and sharper than the shock of infidelity. It pushes the panic away, replacing it with a sudden, terrible clarity. They are watching. I don't look up. I don't scan the room. I lift my water glass, my hand perfectly steady, and take a sip. Slowly, casually. I let my gaze drift past Damien's shoulder, the table to our left. 3 men in dark suits. I recognize them. Robert Klein and his associates. Key investors Damien has been courting for months. They aren't talking to each other. They are looking at our table. I scan the perimeter of the rooftop garden, the elegant, oversized potted ficus tree near our booth, tucked deep in the dark green leaves, almost invisible, is a small, dark lens, a tiny red light, the size of a pinprick, confirms it, a camera. My breath catches. This isn't a messy, private confrontation. This isn't an awkward conversation. This is a performance, a deposition. This is a setup. Damien already knows I know. He wanted me to know, right here, right now. My icy calm solidifies. I am no longer a wife. I am an observer. Damien launches into his monologue. He speaks to Camille, but his voice is projected, carrying just enough to the neighboring table. "It's been difficult," he says, shaking his head with a practiced, weary sadness. "Luna's mental state. As you know, it's been fragile. Very delicate." Camille nods, her face a mask of practiced sympathy. "You've been shouldering so much. I try." Damien sighs, the perfect portrait of a long-suffering husband. But the jealousy and paranoia, it's exhausting. She just refuses to grow up. She can be so erratic. We've had incidents. He's painting me. He is creating a narrative for his audience of investors. The unstable wife, the hysterical, ungrateful Latina who can't handle the pressure, the poor, suffering husband who has no choice but to seek comfort and stability elsewhere, the reliable, sane, professional colleague by his side. I remain silent. I let him talk. I watched the man I loved dismantle my reputation, word by painstaking word, and inside my head, I am recording everything, every lie, every false sigh, every calculated glance. This is the night my husband thinks he will bury me. He believes he can use my brother's troubled past and my manufactured, fragile state to paint us as liabilities, as the Flores siblings, a drain on his success, perhaps even a threat. He thinks he will walk away from this table clean, with his mistress on his arm and my signature on whatever legal document he needs to secure his empire. But Damien doesn't know. He doesn't know about the note burning a hole in my palm. He doesn't see the real script being written under the table. He has no idea that this dinner, the one with his mistress and the waiter named Flores, is the last peaceful meal he will ever eat. He has no idea this is the night I started burying him. To understand why, you have to go back 6 years, back to a community center gymnasium, back to when I still thought I had married a hero. 6 years ago, I was not the woman sitting frozen in velvet. I was 26 years old. My name was still Luna Flores. But I see now that I was an entirely different person. I was a social worker at Lighthouse Crossing Outreach, a cramped, perpetually underfunded center in a part of Houston that the shiny downtown towers tried to ignore. My apartment was small. The air conditioning rattled on hot nights, and I budgeted my groceries down to the last dollar. I drove a 10-year-old car that groaned every morning, but my work meant something. It was real. My world was small, but it was solid. My family didn't have safety nets. We were the safety net for each other. My mother, Teresa Flores, cleaned houses by the hour back in San Antonio, living in the small house my father had left her. My brother, Noah, was 19. He was a good kid with a quick temper. Trying to find his footing after a stupid drunken fight nearly derailed his entire future. We were Floreses. We had never met anyone who wore a watch that cost more than our combined annual salaries. We were the people the system was built to process, not the people it was designed to profit from. My nights were long. I didn't drink gin on rooftops. I drank stale, burnt coffee under fluorescent lights that hummed constantly. My desk was a mountain of paperwork, a monument to human struggle. I sat surrounded by the files of women seeking restraining orders, their bruises hidden for case photos. I sifted through job applications for men just out of prison, trying to find a single employer who would hire a felon. I was fluent in the language of desperation, of people swallowed whole by bad luck, bad choices, and a system that thrives on failure. I knew how things worked from the bottom. I knew nothing about the men who ran the whole machine from the top. That's why I was so angry when my director forced me to attend a fundraising gala. Social impact investing, the embossed invitation read in sleek, silver script. I hated the idea. I hated dressing up. I squeezed into a second-hand navy blue dress that felt like a costume and teetered on borrowed heels that were already pinching my feet. The hotel ballroom was vast, cold, and loud. The chandeliers dripped crystals. I felt like a complete imposter, watching people worth billions nibble on tiny, unidentifiable appetizers and talk about disrupting poverty before getting back into their chauffeured cars. I found the smallest, darkest table in the very back of the room, near an exit, and counted the minutes until I could politely leave. Then Damien Cole walked on stage. He didn't look like the other investors, the older men with soft hands and bored eyes. He was younger, vital, and his suit fit him like armor. He commanded the spotlight, and he started his speech not by talking about returns, but by talking about his childhood. He told a story about growing up in a trailer park, about watching his parents struggle with debt, about the shame of a free lunch ticket. He was the founder of Nova Helix Capital, a tech investment firm that was a household name, but he said his real mission was different. "We don't just invest in business models," he said, his voice resonating with a passion that felt electric, that cut through the polite chatter. "We invest in people." It was every word I wanted to hear. It was the core of my own belief, the entire reason I went to work every day, spoken by a man who actually had the power to do something about it. After the applause died down, he didn't work the main floor. He didn't glad hand the billionaires. He crossed the massive room, past the clusters of wealth and power, and came straight to my little table in the shadows. He had seen my name badge. "Luna Flores, Lighthouse Crossing Outreach. You're on the front lines." I thought he was just making polite, political conversation, but he sat down. He ignored the chair, perching on the edge of the table, bringing himself closer. He asked me about my work. And when I started talking, really talking, about the systemic trap of cash bail, about the lack of re-entry resources for men who genuinely wanted to change their lives, he didn't check his phone. His eyes didn't drift over my shoulder looking for someone more important. For 10 minutes, I was the only person in that entire opulent room. I felt, for the first time in that world, completely and totally seen. I figured that was it. A nice moment. A story I'd tell at the office. But 3 days later, he showed up at Lighthouse Crossing. No press, no entourage, no warning. He just walked in, wearing jeans and a simple polo shirt, carrying a cardboard tray of cheap, hot coffee from the donut shop down the street. Not some fancy brand. He didn't shudder at the peeling paint on the walls or the faint smell of industrial cleaner. My director was frantic, trying to give him a polished tour, but Damien just waved him off. He saw our morning support circle in session. It was a group of ex-cons, sitting on mismatched metal folding chairs, talking about their week. Damien asked if he could join. He didn't wait for an answer. He just pulled up a chair, right between a guy who'd done 5 years for armed robbery and another just out on parole, and he just listened. He shared his own coffee. He asked them what they needed. He treated them like men, not statistics. Before he left, he handed my director a check. I glanced at it later. It was a staggering amount, more than our entire operating budget for the quarter, but that wasn't what got me. He pulled me aside as he was leaving. "You mentioned your father during your talk at the gala," he said, his voice quiet, all the public polish gone. "You said he was a mechanic mine, too." He proposed setting up a new scholarship fund through the center, specifically for vocational training, for people who wanted to work with their hands. He wanted to name it after my dad, who had died of a massive heart attack on the job. Too proud and too broke to admit he was sick. Tears welled in my eyes. This man wasn't just throwing money at a problem. He understood loss. He understood the dignity of working-class pride. He understood me. We started dating. It was a collision of worlds. On Tuesdays, he'd meet me after work, and we'd go to a taco truck in my neighborhood, sitting on the curb, listening to the salsa music blasting from the cars driving by. He listened to my music. He asked about my mother. Then on Fridays, he would pick me up. And suddenly I was stepping into a different universe. Rooftop bars where the cocktails cost $50. Boutique hotels with art that belonged in museums. I was intoxicated by the whiplash, by the sheer scale of his life, and by the fact that he seemed to move through both worlds with such ease. Noah hated him on sight. "He's too smooth." Luna. He warned me after their first awkward meeting. "He's too handsome, too rich. Guys like that aren't real." Noah was protective, wary of anyone from a world that had only ever hurt us. But Damien knew exactly what he was doing. He found out, through me, that Noah had an old, lingering medical bill from his drunken fight. It was a few $1,000s that was wrecking his credit, preventing him from getting a foothold. Damien paid it, just like that, cleared the debt. He didn't make a big deal of it. He just handled it. Then he offered Noah a vague promise of an internship at Nova Helix. "He needs a break," Damien told me, wrapping his arm around me. "He just needs someone to believe in him." I watched him do this. I saw this powerful, brilliant man use his resources to fix a problem that had been a dark cloud over my brother for a year. I didn't see it as a transaction. I didn't see it as the purchase of loyalty or the acquiring of leverage. I saw it as generosity. I mistook his vast, strategic generosity for simple kindness. And that was the first, and most devastating, mistake I ever made. He proposed 8 months later. It wasn't on a yacht, or at a gala, or on a private jet. He did it in a small, dusty secondhand bookstore off Shepherd Drive, the one I browsed in on the rare Saturdays I had to myself. He knew it was my favorite place. The smell of old paper and wood glue was my comfort. I was running my hand along a row of worn-out paperbacks, and I pulled out a copy of a novel I loved. It felt heavier. He had cut a neat square into the pages. Inside, nestled in the heart of the story, was a ring. It was a cushion-cut diamond, so clear and bright it looked like trapped electricity. It was blinding. "I know this is your world, Luna," he said, his voice soft, dropping to one knee in the quiet aisle. "But I want you to be mine." I cried. I said yes. I threw my arms around him, the smell of old books and his expensive cologne mixing. He slid the heavy, cold ring onto my finger. I didn't realize it then, but it was a transaction. I wasn't just accepting a proposal. I was being placed, like a character, into a story he was already writing. Before the wedding, there were the papers. Damien brought it up over a casual Tuesday dinner. "We need to handle the prenup." "Baby," my stomach dropped. I put my fork down. "A prenup." He reached across the table and covered my hand with his thumb rubbing my new ring. He laughed, a warm, disarming sound. "It's not for us. It's standard procedure. My investors, the board, get nervous about attachments. It's just paperwork to protect the company from any, God forbid, messy litigation. It proves to them that our marriage is separate from Nova Helix." He made it sound logical. He made it sound like I was helping him, protecting our future from faceless, greedy shareholders. I trusted him. Of course I trusted him. He was the man who had named a scholarship after my father. I went to his lawyer's office, a glass tower that reflected the clouds, and signed the thick document without hiring my own counsel. I remember the lawyer smiling, telling me I was a smart, modern woman. We were married in San Antonio. It was my choice, not a massive Houston society spectacle, but a small, quiet ceremony in the old white mission church I had gone to as a child. It was perfect. My mother, Teresa, wept quietly. Noah, looking stiff but proud in a rented tuxedo, stood by my side, at the reception, held in the courtyard of a small restaurant. Damien's mother took my hands. She was a quiet, severe woman who rarely smiled. Her grip was dry and surprisingly strong. "He is extremely driven." "Luna," she said, her voice low, her eyes searching mine. "He is intense about everything he touches, everything he wants to own, even the people he loves." I smiled, thinking it was a compliment, a mother's warning about his passion. I should have recognized the truth in her words. I should have heard the word, own. After a whirlwind honeymoon in a place I couldn't pronounce, we came back to Houston. We didn't go back to my small apartment, the one with the rattling air conditioner and the neighbors who played music too loud. Damien drove us to a new building, a sleek glass spire that pierced the downtown skyline. The elevator opened directly into our new home, the penthouse. It was less an apartment and more an observatory. 40 floors up, the walls were all glass. You could see the entire city. The freeways like rivers of light, the storms rolling in from the Gulf. It was beautiful, and it was sterile. The silence was absolute. I unpacked my few boxes in the massive walk-in closet. I placed my mother's old, heavy cast-iron skillet, the one thing I had from my own kitchen, onto the vast white marble island of the new one. It looked ridiculous. It looked like a piece of junk, dark and chipped against the cold. Perfect stone. I missed the sound of traffic. I missed the smell of my neighbors cooking. I missed the feeling of the ground under my feet. Damien found me standing there, staring at the skillet. He came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist, kissing my neck. "I've been thinking." "Baby," he murmured, "I see how tired you are. The work you did at Lighthouse was noble, but you carried it with you. You're burning out." He was right. I was always tired. "I want you to rest," he said. "Really rest. Quit. You don't have to carry the weight of the world anymore." He told me he wanted to take care of me. He would handle everything. He had already set up an automatic monthly payment for my mother, more than she made in 2 months of cleaning. He would cover Noah's college fund. "You've done enough for the community." "Luna," he said, turning me around to face him, "let me do this for you. Let me take care of you." I felt a wave of gratitude so profound it made me dizzy. It was a relief. It was the feeling of a heavy backpack being lifted from my shoulders after a 20-mile hike. I cried. Again. I submitted my resignation the next week. I told myself it was temporary. My new job became Mrs. Cole, and it came with a uniform. Damien introduced me to the Nova Helix corporate stylist. My hair, which I had always worn long and wild, was tamed, cut, colored, and blown out twice a week. My comfortable jeans and cotton t-shirts were replaced. Tailored sheath dresses, silk blouses, cashmere sweaters, and heels. Always, always heels. "You finally look like you're worth your value," Damien said one evening. Watching me get ready for a charity dinner, he smiled. Proud. "You look like my wife." I became the fixture on his arm. I was his origin story. He would introduce me at investor meetings and tech conferences. "This is my wife, Luna. She's the heart of Nova Helix. She spent years in social work. She keeps me grounded in what's real." I was the living, breathing proof of his investing in people speech. I was his moral compass, purchased and polished. Noah moved to Houston about 6 months into our marriage. Damien, true to his word, gave him a job. It wasn't the internship he had promised. It was a full-time position as a driver and personal assistant. The pay was excellent. Noah got his own apartment in a decent complex. I was overjoyed. My family was here. They were safe. They were provided for. But I noticed the change in him almost immediately. Noah, who was always quick with a bad joke and a loud laugh, became quiet. He was tense. Whenever Damien's name flashed on his phone, Noah would flinch, his shoulders tightening as if bracing for a hit. "Is everything okay, mijo?" I asked him one day, stopping by his apartment. "It's fine, Luna. It's just a demanding job. Mr. Cole expects a lot. He wouldn't look me in the eye." I told myself he was just adjusting to the high-pressure corporate world. The golden cage was built. The hairline cracks began to appear. I'd be on the sofa, texting my mother. Damien would walk by, pick up my phone right out of my hands, and scan the conversation. "Just checking," he'd say with a wink. When I protested, he'd laugh. "Hey, I'm just protecting you. I know how guys can be. I don't want anyone disrespecting my wife." He made it sound like protection. One night, I was exhausted after a long foundation dinner. We were in bed, and I said something, my accent, which I usually kept flattened, coming out thick. I pronounced the word 3 like tree. Damien corrected me, sharply. "It's 3, Luna, TH, 3. My face flushed with humiliation. He saw it and pulled me close, kissing my hair. "I'm just joking. Baby, it's cute. I'm just helping you sound polished." The ugliest moment happened at our penthouse. We were hosting a small dinner for some potential investors from New York. Noah was there, not as my brother, but as staff. He was in a black shirt and trousers, standing by the bar, quietly refilling wine glasses. Damien was telling a story, charming the table as he always did. "You have to be so careful who you trust," he said, swirling his glass of red. "You give people a chance, and they can nearly destroy you. I had this young guy once who gave him a huge opportunity, and he made some really, really stupid choices, a few bad decisions, a little too much to drink, and he almost cost the company a major asset." He laughed, and the table laughed with him. As he said it, he looked over at Noah, who was frozen by the bar. Damien got up, walked over, and clapped Noah hard on the back, a gesture that was half embrace, half strike. It made Noah stumble. "Isn't that right?" Noah. "We all make stupid choices when we're young," the investors chuckled, oblivious. Noah's face was pale, his knuckles white on the bottle he was holding. "Yes, sir, Mr. Cole." My blood ran cold. It was a public execution, a power play. He was reminding my brother, in front of all these powerful men, that he was owned, that his past was a leash Damien could yank anytime he wanted. Later that night, when I tried to confront him, Damien was baffled by my anger. "What?" It was a bonding moment. "That's how guys are. Luna, you're being way too sensitive. You really need to learn to relax." He said that to me so many times. "You're too sensitive. You're overthinking it. You're being emotional." If I had been analyzing this situation as a social worker, I would have seen the pattern in 10 minutes. Isolate the target from her support system and job. Create total financial dependency. Undermine her confidence with small corrections and jokes. Use her family as leverage. It was a textbook case of coercive control. But I wasn't a social worker. I was a wife. I was the girl from the neighborhood who was living in a glass tower. I was in love with the man who had saved my brother and was paying my mother's bills. When you believe you are being rescued, you are the blindest person in the world. You refuse to see that the hand pulling you from the water is the same one holding your head under. The descent was fast. It began when Noah quit. He didn't call. He showed up at the penthouse on a Tuesday afternoon, using the old key I'd given him, which I'm sure Damien didn't know about. I found him in the vast, silent kitchen, staring out the glass wall at the city below. He looked like he hadn't slept in a week. "I'm done, Luna," he said, his voice flat. "Done with what? What happened with him? With Nova Helix? I can't do it." He looked ravaged. There were dark purple circles under his eyes, and the knuckles on his right hand were scraped raw, as if he'd been punching concrete. "Did he hurt you?" I asked, grabbing his hand. He snatched it back. "No, it's just the startup world. It's not for me. It's toxic." He was lying. I knew my brother, and this was a terrified lie. "Noah, what did he do?" "Just drop it," he snapped, his voice echoing in the marble kitchen. "Please, for me, just let it go. I'm out." He wouldn't look at me. Not really. He was gone in less than 10 minutes, leaving a cold pit of dread in my stomach. A week later, the first piece of paper arrived in our sterile, silent mailroom. Among the glossy auction catalogs and invitations to galas I now threw away, there was a thick, cream-colored envelope from a private bank. It wasn't addressed to Damien, or even to Mr. and Mrs. Cole. It was addressed to Luna Flores Cole, managing member. I opened it in the elevator. The letterhead read, Flores Cole Family Holdings, LLC. It was a welcome letter, confirming the opening of a new high-yield investment account. I had never heard of this company. I didn't know what a managing member was. When Damien came home, I held it out to him, my hand trembling slightly. "Damien, what is this? It has my name on it. He didn't even take it from me." He glanced at it, kissed my forehead, and walked toward the bar to pour a scotch. "Oh, that," he said, his voice bored. "It's just a tax structure. Our accountants set it up. It's boring. Baby, just paperwork. It's how we move assets for tax purposes. But why does it have my name and Noah's Flores Cole?" He sighed, the sigh of a patient man dealing with a simple child. "It's for our legacy. Luna, for your family, so I can provide for you, for your mother, without it getting tangled in the corporate side. It's protection. For you." He smiled. "Now, please, don't stress yourself out with things you don't understand. I've got it handled." He took the letter and it vanished into the black hole of his home office. But the name stuck in my head. Flores Cole. I started listening more. His office door, once just a door, was now a barrier I was hyper-aware of. One night, I was walking past and heard his voice. He was on speakerphone, his tone clipped and hard. "I don't care what the optics look like," he was saying to someone. "If the regulators start sniffing around, the retail holdings are clean. That's all they'll see. The real risk is being properly managed in the outside vehicles." I didn't know what retail meant in his world, or what a vehicle was. I just knew the sound of deceit. I pushed the door open, a fabricated question about dinner on my lips. He slammed his hand down on the desk, cutting the call instantly. His head whipped around, and the look on his face was not one I recognized. It was cold. It was reptilian. What he snapped. "What did you hear?" "Nothing," I said, recoiling. "I was just going to ask about dinner." "This is my office." "Luna," he said, his voice dangerously low. "This is where I work. You do not just walk in here. You do not listen to my calls. Do you understand me?" "Yes," I whispered. "I'm sorry." I backed out and closed the door. I didn't see Noah for weeks. I called. I texted. but his replies were short. He was figuring things out, finally. I cornered him at our mother's place in San Antonio. He had lost weight. He told me he had a new job. He was waiting tables at the Elysian, the most expensive rooftop restaurant in Houston, the place Damien held his most important client dinners. My blood ran cold. What, how, why there? Of all places? Noah just shrugged, picking at a loose thread on his jeans. It's just a job. Luna, the tips are good. How did you even get an interview, Damien? He actually recommended me. He knows the owner. He pulled a string. This made no sense. Damien pushes him out of a 6-figure assistant job, just to get him a minimum wage waiter job at his favorite restaurant I'm going to come visit. I said, I'll make a reservation. No? His voice was sharp, panicked. Don't, please, Luna. It's weird. Having my sister there, with him, it's weird. Just don't. The feeling of wrongness was suffocating. Back in Houston, the mail brought another anomaly, a bill from a credit card company I hadn't used in years, a starter card I thought I had canceled when Damien gave me his black card. The statement showed a balance of almost $20,000. The charges were bizarre, dozens of small, repeating transactions, all to offshore websites with names that looked like gibberish. I was terrified. I showed it to Damien, expecting him to be furious with me. Instead, he was a vision of calm protection. He picked up the phone right in front of me, called the bank's fraud department, and ripped into the representative. My wife is a victim of identity theft. This is completely unacceptable. You will wipe these charges, and you will close this account. He was powerful, in control. He hung up and smiled at me. See, handled. You really need to be more careful with your old accounts. Baby, I was so relieved. I almost missed it. On the printed statement he'd used, which he left on the counter, was the account summary. It was a business card. The primary cardholder wasn't me. It was an LLC I didn't recognize, with an electronic signature approval by Noah Flores. I felt like the glass walls of the penthouse were closing in. I had to get out. I missed my work. I missed feeling like I had a purpose that wasn't just Damien's wife. I found a small counseling center, Cedarline Wellness. They needed part-time help. I started volunteering, and within a month, they offered me a paid position, 20 hours a week. It was real. It was mine. I came home that day feeling lighter than I had in years. When I told Damien, he smiled. A thin, tight smile. A paid hobby. That's adorable. Luna, whatever you need to feel busy. A week later, the director of Cedarline called me into her office, beaming. Luna, I don't know what to say. Your husband, he's just incredible. He just made a donation, a massive one. It's going to fund our entire community outreach program for 2 years. The next week, a large bronze plaque was installed in the waiting room, the Cedarline Community Counseling Wing, generously sponsored by Nova Helix Capital. My escape was gone. It was just another room in his castle. It was around then that Camille arrived. Damien had been complaining for months about regulatory pressure. I'm bringing in a shark, he'd said. A new head of compliance to make sure every single I is dotted. Someone absolutely brilliant. He introduced me to her at a company reception. Camille. She was striking, sharp, and wore a perfectly tailored suit, but she was also friendly. She shook my hand, her grip firm, and her smile seemed genuine. She talked to me about my social work background, about the importance of ethics. I liked her. I was profoundly relieved. She's amazing. Damien, I told him later that night, I feel so much better knowing you have someone that smart and good, watching over the legal side. He just smiled. She's the best. The company holiday party was at a downtown hotel. The Elysian's catering division was working the event. Noah was there, a ghost in a black uniform, balancing a tray of appetizers. I hated seeing him like that. I was standing with Camille, making small talk. Noah walked past us, his eyes down, and just for a second, I saw it. A flicker. A look passed between Camille and Noah. It wasn't a guest and a waiter. It was something else. Recognition, anger, fear. It was gone in an instant. Later, I caught Noah by the service entrance. Do you know her, Camille? The new lawyer? He froze. Who, the one in the blue dress? No. Never seen her. Why, she wasn't wearing blue. Noah. He just shook his head, picked up an empty tray, and disappeared into the kitchen. Damien's trips became more frequent. Miami, New York, the Cayman Islands. He would come home at all hours, smelling of a perfume that wasn't mine. It was a heavy, expensive, musky scent. The last time I confronted him, he laughed at me. Who is she? Damien, I had asked, my voice shaking. He put his glass down and looked at me, his eyes cold. Are you my counselor now? Luna, are you assessing me? Don't be pathetic. I'm running a global company. You're running a part-time hobby. Stop it. The silence in the penthouse became a weapon. We were two strangers living in a glass box. Then, one night last week, he came home, and everything changed. The coldness was gone. He brought me flowers, yellow roses, my favorite. He was the old Damien, the one from the bookstore. He apologized. He said he'd been under unimaginable pressure, that a huge deal was finally closing. I've been a terrible husband, he said, pulling me close. Let me make it up to you. I've booked a table for tomorrow night, at the Elysian. My heart sank. Damien, Noah works there. It's perfect, he said, cutting me off. It's a celebration. It's for us. Luna, you, me, and one other person who is critically important to our future. He held my face in his hands. I need to talk to you about what's next. I just need you to come. I need you to listen to me, really listen, and not be defensive. Can you do that for me? I was so starved for hope. I said yes. I thought it was a new beginning. I didn't realize I was agreeing to attend my own public execution. I was walking, willingly, into the dinner that had been planned all along. My blood is ice. My hands are stone. I am sitting at the table where my husband just introduced me to his mistress, and the only thing I can feel is the damp, crumpled piece of paper in my fist. I will not give him the satisfaction of a scene. He has a camera. He has an audience. He wants the hysterical, erratic wife he's been describing. I will not give her to him. I arrange my face into a mask of quiet, weary confusion. I let him perform. I watch him lean toward Camille, his voice pitched with theatrical concern, playing the role of the beleaguered husband. She nods, her face a mask of practiced sympathy, her red-nailed hand now resting on his forearm. An anchor, a replacement. I push my chair back. The sound is a quiet scrape on the stone floor. Excuse me, I murmured. My voice is not my own. It is thin and dry. I walk to the restrooms. I do not run. I can feel the eyes of the investors at the next table on my back. I am a specimen, inside the cold marble echo chamber. I lock myself in a stall and press my forehead against the cool, dark partition. I am breathing, but no air is getting in. I hear the main door swish open, but the footsteps are wrong. Not the sharp click of heels, but the squeak of rubber-soled service shoes. The small, gray service door clicks open, then shut. The lock on my stall door jiggles. Luna. It is Noah's voice, a raw, terrified whisper. I fumble with the latch. He practically falls in, pushing the door shut, crowding me against the toilet. His eyes are bloodshot and wild. He smells of fear, a sharp, metallic tang under the restaurant's scent of grilled meat. Don't do anything, he whispers, his hands gripping my arm so tightly it hurts. Do you hear me? Don't cry. Don't yell at him. There are cameras. Luna, that table next to you. They're his investors. They are all his people. This is a performance. Noah, what is happening? Why are you here? I thought you were in Colorado. I don't have time. He shakes his head, his eyes darting to the door as if he expects Damien to burst in. Just sit there. Be quiet. Let him say whatever he wants. This is a setup. I swear to God. Luna, just wait for me. After my shift, by the service exit, please. He is gone before I can answer. Slipping back out the service door, a ghost in a waiter's uniform, I walk back to the table. The ice in my veins has hardened into something else, something structural. I sat down, My hands are perfectly steady. Damien is raising his wine glass. Camille, his closest associate, mirrors the gesture. He smiles at me. A smile of profound, patronizing pity. A toast, he says, his voice carrying just enough to the neighboring table, the one now occupied by his audience, to the future, to everyone's future. He sips. He sets his glass down. He turns to Camille, but he is speaking for the record. It's just a difficult situation, he says, shaking his head with a practiced, weary sadness. Luna has She's had a lot of issues, stemming from her childhood, significant trauma. I've been trying to help her face reality, but she resists. He is diagnosing me. He is not my husband. He is my condescending therapist. He is laying the foundation for his story, seeding the narrative that I am unstable, that I am not a credible witness to my own life. I just nod, as if I am considering his expert opinion. I pick up my fork. I take a small, precise bite of the cold sea bass on my plate. I chew, I swallow. The rest of the meal is a grotesque parody. Damien and Camille talk about market projections, about impact investing, about a new foundation. I am a ghost at my own execution. When the neighboring table of investors finally leaves, one of them claps Damien on the shoulder. The show is over. The camera in the ficus tree, I assume, is now off. Damien signals for the check. A different waiter brings the leather folder. Damien places a credit card inside. It is not his personal black card. It is a dark blue corporate card, with a name on it I have never seen before. He stands up. Camille stands with him. He looks down at me. You look exhausted. Baby, you should go home and get some rest. Camille slips her arm through his. I'm going to stay, she says, her voice suddenly businesslike. Damien and I need to go over the final documents for the launch. It's going to be late at night. He leans down and kisses my forehead. A cold, dry, proprietary press of lips. Go on home, he says. We'll talk tomorrow. He does not wait for me to answer. He leaves. My husband walks out of the restaurant, arm in arm with his mistress. He leaves me at the table. He leaves me to find my own way home. But I do not go home. I ride the elevator down to the lobby. A silent, invisible woman. I walk out the grand front entrance, past the valets calling for sleek, black cars. I turn the corner onto the side street, and then again, into the narrow, dark service alley. I step back into the shadows, behind a stack of empty kegs that smell of stale beer, and I wait. The air is heavy and damp. I don't feel the cold. I don't look at my phone. I just stand in the dark, watching the metal door. My heart is not pounding with fear. It is a slow, cold, methodical drumbeat. 1 hour passes, then another. Finally, just after 2 a.m, the door groans open. A few kitchen workers emerge, laughing, lighting cigarettes as they disperse into the night. Then, Noah. He comes out last, his shoulders slumped. He is still wearing the apron. He looks utterly defeated. Noah, I say from the darkness. He flinches violently, spinning around, his hand flying to his chest. Luna, Jesus, you scared the hell out of me. You said to wait. I say, stepping into the dim light. I'm waiting. He pulls me deeper into the alley, into the stench of wet garbage and old cooking grease. You have to go home. Luna, you need to call a lawyer. We are in so much trouble. Start from the beginning. I demand, what happened after you quit Nova Helix? He leans his head back against the brick wall, closing his eyes. It was all a setup, all of it, he tells me. About 3 months ago, he was driving one of Damien's spare cars, a company Mercedes. A kid ran a red light and T-boned him. It wasn't his fault, but the car was totaled. And Noah. Noah had 2 beers at lunch. He wasn't drunk, but he was just over the legal limit. Damien showed up at the station before they even finished booking me. Noah whispers, his voice thick. He walked in like he owned the place, made 1 phone call. The cops uncuffed me. The whole thing just disappeared. The accident report, the breathalyzer test. It all just went away. He saved you. I say, The old narrative fighting to survive. He owned me. Noah spits, his eyes flying open. The next day, he called me into his office. That glass prison. He had a stack of papers on his desk. He said, "I just saved your life, Noah. You were looking at aggravated DUI. You would have gone back to jail. Your mother." He kept talking about Mommy, how this would destroy her, how she'd be back to cleaning houses. Damien made him sign the papers. It was a new LLC, a holding company. Just a formality, Damien had called it, to hold the asset of the wrecked car. For insurance purposes, I was so scared. Luna, I was so stupid. I just signed. I didn't even read the name. But he got paranoid. He started checking. He used a computer at the public library. The LLC wasn't just for a car. It was registered to me, Luna Flores Cole, as managing member. He was listed as a secondary officer. It's a shell. "Luna," he says, his voice cracking. He pulls out his phone. It's been receiving massive wire transfers from accounts in the Caymans, in Switzerland, millions of dollars, and then the money goes right back out. It's buying assets. He scrolls to another file. Guess what one of the assets is? This, the Elysian, this restaurant, this building. It's part of a portfolio owned by our LLC. We were sitting inside our own goddamn paper prison tonight. That's why Damien forced him to work here. He said I had to be hands-on with our investment, Noah says bitterly. He wanted me here. He wanted me to be the waiter tonight. It was all part of his show. To prove to those investors how pathetic we are. That we're just the help. Why didn't you tell me? My voice is shaking with a rage so cold it burns. Noah's face hardens. He opens his text messages and shows me one from an unknown number. It arrived 2 days ago. If you make one stupid move, your mother will be on the street. She'll be cleaning toilets for scraps again. I promise you. Below the text is an attachment, an image file. I tap it. It's a PDF of a mortgage document. I recognize the letterhead. It's for our mother's small white house in San Antonio, the house my father died in. The mortgage was paid off years ago, except it's not. It has been refinanced, a new loan, for a huge amount, held by an anonymous entity, one that Damien controls. The last piece slams into place. The strange credit card charges in my name, the tax structure, LLCs, the camera, the public humiliation, my fragile mental state. He isn't just cheating on me. He is building a case. He is laundering his money through my name and my brother's. He is preparing to throw us to the wolves. He will be the victim, the poor, successful man, betrayed by his unstable, greedy wife and her ex-con brother, the Flores siblings, all my training as a counselor, all the patterns of abuse I was trained to spot in others. They flash through my mind. Isolate the target, create financial dependency, control her family, and now, the final move, destroy her credibility and frame her for the crime. I don't remember the ride back to the penthouse. I walk into the vast, dark space. The city lights are reflected in the glass walls. A million silent, staring eyes. The apartment is as cold as a morgue. I do not cry. Tears are a luxury. Tears are a weakness he expects. I walk to the white marble island. I pull out my laptop. I sit on the hard, cold stool. I opened a new email. My fingers are perfectly steady. I type in a name I haven't used in years. Amelia Reyes, my college roommate, the quiet one who went to UT Law and became a shark in corporate litigation, the one who told me she liked finding out where the rich guys buried the bodies. The subject line is one word: urgent. The message is brief. Amelia, I need you. My husband is not who I thought he was. He is preparing to bury me and my brother. He is framing us for financial crimes. I need you to find everything. I need to see everything. I hit send, and in the silence of the glass tower, the woman he tried to erase begins to hunt. Amelia arrived on the first flight from Austin, stepping out of the elevator into the cold marble foyer at 7 in the morning. She looked exactly as I remembered her from law school finals, wrinkled gray suit, hair pulled back in a severe bun, and a large, steaming cup of coffee in her hand. She smelled like caffeine and exhaustion. She had seen too many corporate betrayals to be shocked by mine. She hugged me, a quick, hard gesture. "Okay," she said, her voice rough. "Give me the short version, then give me the long version." We sat at the massive marble island, the same one where Damien had kissed me and told me I was being emotional. I told her everything: the dinner, the camera, Camille, Noah's terror, the mortgage on my mother's house. I spoke for nearly an hour, my voice flat and cold, reciting the facts as I would a case file. Amelia listened without interruption, her expression unreadable. When I finished, she took a long, slow sip of her coffee. She set the mug down. "He's not just framing you, Luna," she said, her voice quiet. "He's building a kill box, legally, financially. He's been doing it for years. So, my question is this: how far are you willing to go to get to the truth?" "All the way," I said. For the next 8 hours, the penthouse dining room, a place built for show, became our war room. Amelia had me log into every bank account, every email, every investment portfolio I had access to. Most of them I had never even looked at. Damien had always told me, "It's all handled, baby." As I logged in, a new, dark picture of my life emerged. One by one, we found them, a string of corporate entities, all registered in Delaware, all with my name on them. Luma Horizon Holdings, Flores Coal Impact LLC, Brightwave Initiative. My name, Luna Flores Coal, was listed as president, as director, as managing member, on paper. I was not a part-time counselor, I was a CEO. "Now the prenup," Amelia said. I had a digital copy saved in a folder marked Household. I sent it to her. She read it, her eyes scanning the pages with terrifying speed. She didn't stop at the main pages. She kept scrolling, deep into the addendums. "Here," she said, turning the laptop screen to face me. "Addendum B, Section 4, Subsection C, the Integrity Clause." She read it aloud. "In the event that Luna Flores Coal is formally accused, charged, or found civilly liable for any acts of financial malfeasance, ethical violation, or gross negligence, all jointly held assets, including real estate and liquid funds, immediately revert to the sole ownership of Damien Cole." The air left my lungs. "It's the kill box," Amelia said, her voice flat. "It's not a prenup. It's an escape hatch for him, and a trap door for you. If he can prove you're the unstable, greedy wife who messed up his companies, he walks away with everything: the house, the money, the art, and he walks away clean." At noon, another man arrived. Amelia had called him. His name was Gabriel Stone, a forensic accountant. He was a small, neat man in a boring brown suit who looked more like a bird than a predator. He had been with the IRS for 20 years. He set up his 2 laptops and a portable monitor on the dining table, and he got to work. He didn't speak in emotions. He spoke in numbers. "The money's dirty, Mrs. Cole," he said after 2 hours, pointing to a complex diagram he had built on his screen. It was a web of arrows and boxes. "He's round-tripping." He showed us money, millions, would move from an offshore account, he called it a gray investor, into one of my companies. From there, a portion would go to the LLC with Noah's name on it. That LLC would then purchase an asset, like the restaurant, or a block of cryptocurrency. Then, that asset would be sold, often at a confusing loss or gain, to another entity, one fully controlled by Nova Helix. "He's washing it," Gabriel explained, pointing to a transaction for $300,000. "He's taking dirty money from his investors, running it through your company's companies he's established as being run by questionable people, you and your brother, and it's coming out the other side as clean corporate profit for Nova Helix. You're not just his alibi, Mrs. Cole, you're his laundromat." He found the signature pages for the account Noah had been forced to sign. "This e-signature," he said, zooming in. "It's dated March 14th. I was with him that day," I said. my blood running cold as I checked my old calendar. We were in Austin. We were visiting him in rehab. He checked in on the 10th. He didn't have a phone or a laptop. I have the check-in records to prove it, Gabriel said. Someone faked his signature while he was in lockdown. He kept digging. He found the source of the LLCs, to open them. Damien had needed personal information, dates of birth, social security numbers. Mrs. Cole, did you give your husband your father's information? What, no? Why? Gabriel turned his screen. He showed me a file from another shell company, a silent partner, listed not by name, but by a number, a social security number. It's his, I whispered, recognizing the 9 digits I had memorized as a child. It's my father's. He had used my dead father's identity. He had dug up his data, his ghost, and strapped it to his criminal enterprise. The man who had named a scholarship after him, while Gabriel traced the money, I started searching for the company names. That's when I found it. Brightwave Initiative. It had a beautiful glossy website, stock photos of smiling, diverse people. It was a nonprofit, it claimed, focused on providing mental health resources to underserved communities. And there, on the About Us page, was me. There was a professionally shot photo of me I didn't remember taking. Below it, a passionate quote about my life's work. There was even a video. I clicked it. It was me. It was clips from old interviews, from panels I had done for Lighthouse Crossing, all sliced apart and stitched back together. My voice, my words, had been edited, reassembled to sound like I was the passionate founder, the driving force behind this charity. Gabriel pulled up the financials for Brightwave. This is the primary washer, he said, his voice grim. It's taking in the largest donations from the gray investors. Then it donates that money to the Flores Coal Impact LLC, your brother's company. On paper, my passionate mental health charity was the engine funding the entire criminal enterprise. If anyone ever investigated, I wouldn't just be a suspect, I would be the mastermind. We had the how. We still needed the final link to Damien. Amelia found it. In the archived backups of my email, she cross-referenced dates Gabriel had given her. She found a chain. It was an official compliance alert, sent from Camille's email address to Damien. Damien, Camille had written, these transactions from Brightwave to the Flores LLC are unclassified. They are high risk and are flagging our internal systems. We cannot approve these reports as is. Damien's reply, sent 5 minutes later, was chilling. Reinterpret the data. Classify them as startup capital allocations for the restaurant group. We need the files to look clean. Camille, not accurate. Clean. Handle it. Camille's final response was a single sentence. The reports have been adjusted as per your directive. Her language, it was stiff, forced, the language of someone being coerced, the language of someone leaving a paper trail. Amelia leaned back, rubbing her temples. She looked at me, her eyes hard. Here's what happens next. Luna, he's got his narrative. He's got videos of you erratic at dinner. He's got the unstable wife story seated with his investors. He has you as the head of a fraudulent charity and your brother as the ex-con money mule. She paused, letting the weight of it settle on me. If we don't go to the FBI first, she said, he will walk in there as the heartbroken, trusting husband. He will play them the video from the restaurant. He will show them the documents, and he will tell them, my wife and my brother-in-law, the 2 people I trusted most, they betrayed me. They've been using my company to launder money. Please help me. I shivered. I could hear his voice saying the words. It was exactly what he would do. We have to go first, I said. Not yet, Amelia said. We don't have enough. This is all digital. He'll say you faked it. He'll say his compliance officer, Camille, handled it all, and you're in it together. We need the spine. We need the physical evidence he thinks is safe. His office, I whispered. His office, she confirmed. After hours, we need his physical files. We need his personal devices, the ones he doesn't use for company business. The ones he keeps in that safe he thinks you're too stupid to know the code for. Noah, I said. He was his driver, his assistant. He still has his old key card. He never gave it back. Good, Amelia said, a thin, cold smile touching her lips for the first time. It's a huge risk. If you're caught, it's breaking and entering, and our entire case is compromised. But if we don't do it, we don't have the backbone. We don't have guns. The Nova Helix building was a tomb at 2 a.m. The marble lobby was dark, save for a few recessed lights that made the floor gleam like a black, frozen lake. Noah's hand was shaking so badly he could barely get the keycard into the slot. I can't, he whispered, his voice cracking. Yes, you can, I said, my voice low and hard. I put my hand over his, steadying it. He's counting on you being too scared. Prove him wrong. I pushed his hand forward. The light on the reader blinked green. The lock clicked. We were in. We walked past the massive, dark reception desk toward the security station. My heart was a fist, pounding against my ribs. Frank, the night guard, was at the desk, his back to us, watching a small television mounted on the wall. He was a kind, older man who had always brought Noah snacks. Noah stopped. Frank turned, his eyes adjusting to the darkness. He saw us. He recognized Noah. His eyes widened, just for a second. He took in Noah's pale face, my terrified, rigid posture. He saw the old, unauthorized keycard in Noah's hand. He knew we shouldn't be there. A dozen emotions passed over his face. Then, deliberately, he turned his back to us. He stared intently at the basketball game on his tiny screen, his shoulders hunching forward. He was giving us a window. He was letting us pass. It was the first sign. Damien was not as loved, or as feared, as he believed. Go, I whispered, pulling Noah toward the elevators. The elevator ride to the 40th floor was the longest minute of my life. The penthouse office was silent. The only light came from the sprawling city below, casting long, geometric shadows across the plush carpet. Damien's massive desk was a dark silhouette against the wall of glass. His office, I said, the safe, where Noah whispered, his eyes darting into the shadows. I saw him access it once. He thought I was asleep on the office sofa. I walked to the wall of framed awards, magazine covers, Man of the Year plaques. I went straight to the largest one, a heavy, ostentatious crystal trophy, Houston Philanthropist of the Year. I lifted it off the wall. Behind it, just as I remembered, was a small, black metal square, a digital keypad. We don't have the code. Luna, Noah said, his voice frantic. Yes, we do, I said. I had seen his fingers move. It was 6 digits. He was a creature of habit and, I was betting, supreme arrogance. He's a narcissist, Noah. He thinks he's romantic. He thinks I'm a sentimental fool. My fingers moved to the keypad. I punched in my birthday, month, day, year, 08-12-89. A small green light flashed. The safe clicked open. Noah let out a sound, half sob, half laugh. You've got to be kidding me. He didn't think I was smart enough to notice. I said, pulling the heavy door open. He just thought I was an accessory. It wasn't a large safe. It held no cash. It held his real assets, his leverage. There was a burner phone, 3 black, unlabeled USB drives, and a thick manila envelope. I pulled the envelope out first. My stomach turned. It was a collection of photographs. They were grainy, taken in dark bars, some clearly with a hidden camera. It was Noah. From 2-3 years ago, during his worst period, he was drunk, falling over, his eyes vacant. In one, he was clearly making a drug deal. Stapled to each photo was a small typed note. The notes were dates. I don't understand, Noah said, his voice hollow as he stared at his own ghost. I do, I said, my mind racing. I pulled out my phone and accessed the files Gabriel Stone had sent me. The bank transfer records. Look, this photo, the one from the bar. The date is March 14th. The same day he e-signed your name on the LLC papers while you were in rehab. This one. The drug deal. It's dated the same day as the first massive wire transfer from the Caymans. He was building his narrative. He wasn't just setting Noah up. He was curating an exhibition. He was prepared to show the authorities exactly what kind of degenerate he had been forced to trust, to explain how this drunk, drug-addled kid had clearly masterminded the whole thing. He was going to crucify you, I whispered. I grabbed the USB drives and plugged the first one into the laptop Amelia had given me. It was a simple, bootable drive. I started copying everything. The files were encrypted, but Amelia had given me the software for that, too. As the progress bar crept across the screen, a sound split the silence. Ding, the soft, polite chime of the executive elevator arriving on our floor. Noah and I froze. My blood turned to slush. We were trapped. The only way in or out was that elevator. The stainless steel doors slid open. The light from the elevator car spilled into the dark office, casting a long, sharp rectangle on the floor. A figure stood in the center of it. A silhouette. A woman. In a sharp suit. Holding a briefcase. Camille. She stood there for a long, silent second, taking in the scene. Me. At Damien's desk. Noah. White-knuckled and terrified by the open safe. The USB drive plugged into my laptop. I expected her to scream, to pull out her phone and call security, or Damien. Instead, she stepped into the office. She calmly pressed the wall panel, and the office lights snapped on, blinding us in their harsh white glare. She walked to the glass door of the office, closed it, and engaged the digital lock. We were locked in with her. She turned. She looked at the open safe, the scattered photos of Noah, the laptop. She let out a long, slow breath. It was not a sigh of anger. It was a sigh of profound, bone-deep weariness. I was wondering, she said, her voice low and rough, how long it would take you to get here. I stared at her, the woman in the red dress, the mistress, the closest associate. You knew, I whispered. I didn't know when, she said, tossing her briefcase onto the leather sofa. But I knew you would. You're a counselor. Luna, you're trained to see patterns. I knew you'd eventually see this one. You're with him, Noah stammered, his voice filled with hatred. At the restaurant, you played along. You're his partner. Camille's laugh was a short, bitter bark. Partner, you think I'm his partner? She looked at me. He's blackmailing me. Luna, he has been for almost a year. She walked to the window, looking down at the city lights. Damien doesn't have partners. He has leverage. He found out about something from my past. A stupid, desperate decision I made in law school. Massive student loan debt that I'd hidden on my applications. An abortion that I'd kept from my family. She turned, her eyes glittering with unshed, angry tears. He found it all, and he made me a deal. I could either be his star head of compliance, or I could be disbarred for fraud and lose my entire life. So I signed his fake reports. I interpreted his data. I played the role he wrote for me, including the supportive colleague at the dinner. The emails, I said, remembering the chain Amelia had found. Your language was being forced. I was leaving a trail, she said. A trail I hoped someone, someday, would be smart enough to follow. She walked to her briefcase, clicked it open, and pulled out a single, silver USB drive. She tossed it onto the desk. It landed next to my laptop. That, she said, is my insurance policy. Damien thinks he has the only copy of the restaurant footage. He doesn't. That's the original, unedited file from the camera in the ficus tree. From the moment it was turned on, I looked at her, confused. He turned it on an hour before you got there, she explained, her voice cold. It includes the footage of him arriving early, pulling Noah aside by the service station. It includes the audio of him coaching Noah, he said, and I quote, I need you to be the pathetic, nervous little screw-up tonight. I need them to see what I'm managing. Help me sell the performance, and I'll forget all about that Mercedes. The dinner. It wasn't just a setup. It was a rehearsed, directed scene, a piece of evidence he was manufacturing. But why Noah, I asked. Why us? Camille looked at Noah, and for the first time, her expression softened into something that looked like pity and a strange, familiar guilt. You two knew each other, I said, the memory from the Christmas party flashing in my mind. That look. You lied to me. Noah looked down. We dated. Luna. For a few months. Right before I started at Nova Helix. What I was spinning. It was brief. Camille said, her voice sharp. It was nothing. But Damien found out. He found out the day he interviewed Noah for the assistant job. And he couldn't stand it. He couldn't stand two pieces of his property touching, the full, ugly picture snapped into focus. He broke you up, I said. He told Noah I was a corporate spy who used people. Camille said, her voice flat. He told me Noah was an unstable, relapsing user who was obsessed with me. He planted seeds. He let our own insecurities do the rest. And then he had us. Two separate, broken tools he could control. Both of us too ashamed and too scared to ever talk to each other. Until tonight, the mistress, the brother, both puppets, their strings held by the same man. He's planning his exit, Camille said. All business now. He's about to launch the Bright Wave Global Fund. It's the final move. It's designed to absorb all the dirty money from the LLCs, all the gray investor cash, into one massive, new, clean structure. She looked at me. A structure with you, Luna Flores Cole, as the founding director, and Noah Flores as the chief operating officer. It's all in the incorporation documents he had me file last week. He's going to let it run for 1 quarter, then he's going to walk into the FBI, play them the footage from the restaurant, and tell them his sad story. How his philanthropic wife and her drug addict brother went rogue and built a criminal enterprise behind his back. I stood in the center of his glass office, the city lights pressing in. I looked at my reflection in the window, and in the glass. I saw the three of us, the wife, the mistress, the brother, all trapped, all victims. No, I said. The word was quiet, but it cut through the silence. Camille and Noah looked at me. He doesn't get to tell that story, I said. I picked up Camille's USB drive. I picked up the drives from the safe. I grabbed the manila envelope full of his framed lies. He's not going to the FBI, I said, my voice shaking, but not with fear. With a rage so pure and so cold, it was almost calm. We are. 48 hours later. I was walking into the Bob Casey Federal Building in downtown Houston. I was pulling a heavy, black, rolling suitcase, the kind Damien used for his quick trips to New York. This one wasn't filled with designer suits. It was filled with USB drives, bank statements, forged documents, and the manila envelope of pictures meant to destroy my brother. Amelia walked beside me, her face a neutral, legal mask. Noah and Camille were in a separate car, scheduled to arrive 30 minutes after me. We passed through the metal detectors. The sound of the conveyor belt, the bored guard telling me to take off my shoes. It all felt surreal. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs. I was walking into the one place Damien had always taught me to fear. The place he said was for other people. Amelia had secured the meeting through a contact of a contact. We were led to a conference room on the 8th floor. It was gray carpet, gray walls, a gray laminate table. The air was stale. 2 people were waiting for us, a man and a woman. They did not smile. I'm Assistant U.S. Attorney Jordan Blake, the man said. He was sharp, impeccably dressed, and looked exhausted. This is Special Agent Rachel Levin, FBI. Agent Levin was the opposite. She was in a practical pantsuit, her hair pulled back, and her eyes missed nothing. They were the cold, assessing eyes of someone who has heard 1,000 lies. They didn't offer us coffee. We sat down. So, Blake said, opening a folder that was completely empty. Amelia tells us you have a story about your husband, Mrs. Cole. For the next 20 minutes, I was not treated as a victim. I was treated as a suspect. You signed the LLC incorporation papers, Mrs. Cole. Did you or did you not? Blake asked. Yes, but he told me. I didn't ask what he told you. I asked if you signed them. Why? Agent Levin cut in, her voice quiet but sharp. Did you not find it strange that a multi-million-dollar charity, the Bright Wave Initiative, listed you as its founder? He told me it was a tax shelter, that it was normal. You're an educated woman, a counselor, you work with complex human problems. Are you telling us you just signed your name to dozens of financial documents, controlling millions of dollars, and never once read them? Why are you here now, Mrs. Cole? Blake asked, leaning forward. Is it because your husband's new girlfriend made you angry? Is this a revenge filing, because we don't have time for a domestic dispute? This was the wall Damien had built. The hysterical, emotional wife. I felt the blood rush to my face, the sting of tears. I shoved it down. I would not be the woman from the restaurant. I took a deep breath. I stopped being Luna's wife. I became Luna the counselor. Let's talk about patterns of behavior, I said. My voice was suddenly clear. Both of them stopped and looked at me. For the last 5 years, I said, my husband has engaged in a classic textbook model of coercive control. Step 1, isolation. He convinced me to quit my job, the one place I had financial and personal autonomy. Step 2, financial dependency. He controlled all access to money, making me a beneficiary but never a partner. Step 3, systematic undermining of my confidence. He joked about my intelligence, my accent, my emotional state. Step 4, leveraging family. He created a financial dependency for my mother and a legal one for my brother, ensuring their silence and compliance. I laid it out, piece by piece, not as a wife complaining, but as an analyst presenting a case file. I detailed the dates, the conversations, the psychological manipulation. The man you're describing, Mr. Blake, I finished. The man who set up this dinner is the same man who told me I was too stupid to understand paperwork, and then, in the same breath, too emotional to be credible. The documents you're questioning were part of that abuse. They were his weapons. The room was silent. Levin and Blake looked at each other. The dinner at the Elysian, I said, was not a domestic dispute. It was an attempt to manufacture evidence. He was creating a public record of my instability to present to you when he was ready to frame me. There was a knock on the door. Amelia opened it. Camille walked in, carrying her own laptop bag. This is Camille, Amelia said. She is the head of compliance at Nova Helix, and she is here as cooperating witness number 1. This changed the temperature in the room. Blake and Levin sat up. For the next hour, Camille, with the precision of a lawyer, walked them through the digital evidence. She didn't offer opinions. She showed them facts. She opened her laptop. She showed them the internal email logs, the ones Damien thought were deleted. She showed them the chat logs on the company's private server. Here, she said, pointing to a line of text. This is Mr. Cole's direct order to me, time-stamped, to reclassify the wire transfer from Brightwave, and here is my response, confirming the directive. Here, she moved to another file, is the access log showing he personally downloaded the falsified compliance reports to an external drive, the same drive we found in his safe. Blake focused on her. He ordered you to falsify 8K filings. Ms. Camille, you did it. Why? Camille's face was pale, but her voice was steady. Because he was blackmailing me. Sir, he had evidence of student loan fraud from 12 years ago. It was a choice between my career and his crime. I chose my career, but I documented every single directive he gave me. Agent Levin had been quiet. Now, she spoke. Nova Helix has been on our radar, she said, looking at Blake. We've received 3 SAR suspicious activity reports from 2 different banks in the last 6 months, all tied to these LLCs. We just didn't have the internal corroboration. We had smoke, but no gun. Well, I said, unzipping the suitcase, I pulled out the burner phone, the other USB drives, the manila envelope. Here's the gun, and here are the photos he was planning to use to frame my brother. Levin picked up the envelope and looked through the pictures. Her face hardened. He was building a parallel narrative. "This whole case, this bright wave," Blake murmured, looking at the evidence now spread across the gray table. "It's much bigger than our initial reports. The money coming in, it's tied to an investor named Robert Klein." "He was at the dinner," I said. "He was at the table next to us. He was the audience." "Klein is not just gray Mr. Blake," Levin said. "He's on an OFAC watch list. This isn't just tax fraud. This is money laundering for a sanctioned individual." The weight in the room became immense. This was no longer about my marriage. This was international crime. Jordan Blake looked at me, and his exhaustion was gone. He was focused. "Mrs. Cole, Luna, I need you to understand what's about to happen. Once we activate this, there is no pause button. This is not a man who will go quietly. He will react, legally, with the best lawyers money can buy, financially, by trying to freeze every asset you've ever touched, and," he paused, "perhaps in other ways that are not in the law books. Are you prepared for that?" He was asking me if I was afraid he would try to hurt me, to hurt Noah, to hurt my mother. "Yes," I said, my voice quiet. "Good," Levin said, "because he's not going to stop, which means we have to move fast, and we have to move perfectly." "He's planning to act first," Camille offered. "His Bright Wave Global Fund launch, it's in 2 weeks. That's his endgame. He'll roll all the dirty money into it, and then he'll walk in here and play the victim." "Then we have to get him before he does," Blake said. "We can't just arrest him," Levin countered, thinking aloud. "It's all circumstantial. It's his word against yours. His high-priced lawyers will paint you, Mrs. Cole, as the scorned wife, and you, Ms. Camille, as the disgruntled employee and lover. They'll say you conspired." "We need him to incriminate himself," Blake said. "We need him caught in the act," Levin said, a sudden sharp light in her eyes. She looked at me. "The launch, it's a big, public gala, right?" "Yes," Camille said. "But the real deal is happening at a private dinner just before, in a hotel boutique, just him, Camille, and the investor, Klein. That's when they're slated to make the final, first transfer to the new fund." Agent Levin smiled. It was the first smile I'd seen from her, and it was terrifying. "Perfect. We're going to set a stage of our own. He likes performances. We'll give him one." The plan formed quickly, a brutal, efficient piece of machinery. "Luna," Levin said, "you will attend that dinner, not as a victim, as the proud, supportive wife, the founder of Bright Wave. He will want you there as his trophy. You will wear a wire." "Noah," she continued. "Damien loves putting him in a waiter's uniform. Let's use that. We'll get him hired as support staff for the private VIP room. He'll be wired, too. He'll be our eyes and ears inside." "And Camille," Blake said, "you will be right next to him, as his closest associate. Your laptop will be feeding us a real-time capture of every keystroke he makes when he initiates that transfer." They were going to trap him. They needed him to sit at that table, brag about his plan to frame me and Noah, and hit the send button on the largest illegal transfer of his life, all at the same time. "It's the only way," Blake said, his eyes on mine. "It's dangerous. It's high risk, but it will give us an unbreakable case. Him, his voice, his hand on the keyboard, all at once." "I'll do it," I said. "I'll do it," Noah's voice said from the doorway. He and Camille had been listening for the last 10 minutes. Blake handed me a stack of papers, a thick, daunting stack. Witness protection agreements, proffer letters, waivers, consents to record. "Read every word, Mrs. Cole," Blake said. "This time, read every single line before you sign." I sat there, in that gray, sterile room, under the humming fluorescent lights, and I did. I read every word. It was the first contract I had ever truly understood. I picked up the pen, and with a hand that was finally perfectly steady, I signed my name, not Luna Flores Cole. I signed Luna Flores. It was the first step. I was taking my name back. The 2 weeks before the launch were a blur of gray. Sterile rooms and tactical planning. I moved out of the penthouse. I left a note on the cold. Marble Island, a note I knew Damien might not find for days. I told him I was going to a wellness retreat in the desert, that I needed space to think, using the very therapeutic language he had always mocked. Agent Levin moved me into a small, anonymous corporate apartment in a part of town I didn't know. It was clean, beige, and had no personality. It was the safest I had felt in years. From there, I made one call to my mother. I told her I was working on a difficult project and would be out of touch. I told her I loved her. Then, I mailed her a simple handwritten note, sent via a courier. Amelia had arranged. It was one sentence: I am safe. Don't believe anything anyone tells you until you hear it from me. I felt like I was running, but for the first time, I wasn't running away. I was running toward the sound of the guns. We were all in training. Noah was put through a crash course by Levin's technical team. They had him in a replica of the hotel's service uniform, making him carry trays of full, heavy water glasses. You are not a person, Mr. Flores. Levin's voice cut through the training room at the federal building. You are furniture. You are invisible. You do not make eye contact. You do not rush. You are a ghost who pours wine. They fitted him with a button camera and a wire. He kept joking, his voice tight. So, if I spill wine on him, does that count as resisting arrest? You will do exactly as you're told, Levin said, not a trace of humor in her voice. Later, I found him in the hallway, his head in his hands, his shoulders shaking. He was just a kid. He was 25, and we were asking him to walk into the lion's den. I'm so scared. Luna, he whispered. What if I mess it up? What if he sees me? What if he knows? I knelt in front of him, in that gray government-smelling hallway. He won't know, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Because he's never seen you. Noah, he's never seen us. He only sees what he wants to see. He sees the mess up. He sees the erratic wife. He is blind. We're just going to use his blindness against him. Camille was going through her own hell. Blake and Levin grilled her for hours, day after day. They weren't just taking her deposition. They were testing her. They were trying to break her. Let's try this again, Ms. Camille. Blake's voice echoed into the hallway where I waited. You signed the fraudulent compliance report. Why should we believe you're not just his partner, trying to cut a deal now that the ship is sinking? He was blackmailing me. Her voice was thin. You say he was blackmailing you. He will say you were extorting him. She said, he said, with a very powerful he. Why should we risk our entire case on you? I heard a sound. A chair scraping back, then a quiet, choked sob. I pushed the door open. Camille was standing, her back to them, her body rigid. She was crying, but silently, her shoulders shaking. I'm not a good person, she said, her voice raw. I'm not. I made terrible choices, but I am not him, and I am so tired. I am just so tired of being the bad guy in his story. I walked over to the tissue box on the table. I pulled one out and held it out to her. She looked at me, her eyes red, her makeup smeared. The mistress, the wife, the two women he thought he had pinned against each other. She took the tissue. It was the strangest alliance I had ever been a part of. Damien, oblivious, was playing his final hand. The rumors, which Amelia's contacts confirmed, were spreading like fire through Houston's elite. Luna Cole was having a breakdown. She was emotionally unstable, lashing out, and had fled to some celebrity rehab clinic, and her brother, that Flores kid, had apparently fallen off the wagon again, getting into bar fights. Damien was the victim. He was the stoic husband, the long-suffering benefactor, holding his empire together while his unstable, ungrateful in-laws fell apart. He was seeding the ground. He was pre-poisoning the jury pool. The night of the event. The boutique hotel was dripping with wealth. The lobby was a sea of dark suits and glittering cocktail dresses. It was a scene from a movie. White orchids, flickering candles. the low thrum of confident conversation. In the main ballroom, a massive screen was set up, playing a looping video, a slick corporate promotion for the Bright Wave Global Fund. My face was on it. It was the video from the website, but Camille had done her work. As I watched, I realized all the manipulative sound bites Damien had inserted were gone. My words were still mine, but they were about hope, about community. Camille's small, secret act of sabotage, a tech, one of Levin's people, brushed past me in the lobby. "Ma'am," he murmured, handing me a small, flat black device. "The wire. It's live." I went to the ladies' room. My hands shook as I unzipped my dress. It was a simple, elegant, navy sheath, as requested by the FBI. Nothing that rustles, nothing with beads, easy to plant the mic. I taped the cold, metallic square to my sternum, between my breasts. I ran the tiny wire up and affixed the microphone to the inside of my bra. I felt it, cold against my skin. A mechanical heartbeat. I walked back out. And there he was. Damien. He was glowing. He was at the center of a circle of investors, his hand on Robert Klein's back, laughing. He looked like a king. He saw me, and his smile widened. "There she is," he boomed, opening his arms. "My beautiful wife. She's back. I told you she just needed a little rest." He pulled me against his side. His hand settled on my waist, his thumb digging into my hip bone, the familiar, proprietary grip, possession. He leaned in, his lips brushing my ear, his voice a low, cold whisper that no one else could hear. "You look composed. That's good." He squeezed my waist, hard. "Don't you dare embarrass me again. Do you understand?" It was a direct threat, a callback to the dinner at the Elysian. He was reminding me of my place. I just smiled up at him, the perfect, supportive wife. "Of course not. Darling, this is your night." He led me to the private dining room. It was an annex off the main ballroom, separated by heavy velvet curtains. One round table, set for 10. Klein and his associates, Damien, Camille, and me. Camille was already seated. She looked perfect, cool, professional, her laptop open in front of her. Her eyes met mine for a fraction of a second. It was all the confirmation I needed. We were in position. We sat. The small talk was excruciating. Wine was poured. I took a sip of water, the wire pressing into my skin. Then, the service doors opened, and Noah walked in. He was pushing a heavy silver dessert trolley. His face was a perfect blank mask. He was invisible. My heart was pounding so hard, I was sure the microphone would pick it up. I could see the sweat on his temples. He was trembling. He moved around the table, serving a pre-dessert. As he reached me, his hand, the one holding the silver tongs, was shaking. He placed the small glass on the table, in the same motion. His other hand, the one holding the napkin, brushed against my water glass. A tiny, deliberate clink. It was the signal. His mic was hot. The room was live. We were recording. Damien, at the head of the table, stood up. He raised his glass. He was the man from the gala, the hero I thought I'd married. "To responsibility," he said, his voice smooth and full of false humility. "To transparency. That's what Bright Wave is about. It's not just about returns. It's about changing the world. And it was all inspired by the work of one person, my wife, Luna." He smiled at me. The table applauded. "And that's why," he continued, "I am so proud to announce, as we launch this new global fund, that Luna has agreed to step into a new, vital role. She will be the Chief Executive Officer of the Bright Wave Global Fund." More applause. Klein raised his glass to me. I smiled. My face ached from the effort. He was promoting me. He was handing me the crown and the guillotine in the same gesture. I felt sick. The main course was cleared. The dessert was served by Noah, his hands steadier now. Damien leaned back, the picture of a relaxed, successful man. He leaned in toward Klein, lowering his voice, confidential, conspiratorial. But I was next to him, and Noah was just behind him, refilling water glasses. Our two microphones were perfectly placed. "Now, between us, Robert," Damien murmured. "It's a perfect structure." "What about your in-laws?" Klein asked, his voice a low rumble. "The papers I saw their names are all over the feeder funds." Damien laughed, a soft, dismissive chuckle, the sound I had come to hate. "That's the beauty of it," he confided, his voice now recorded, being piped directly into the FBI command post in the hotel room upstairs. "The Floreses, they're emotional, not sophisticated. My brother-in-law, good kid. But he's a mess, recovering addict, got a record, and my wife, she's a counselor. All heart, no head. She just signs what I put in front of her. They don't understand a thing." He took a sip of his scotch. "It's a perfect firewall," he whispered, savoring his own brilliance. "If anything ever gets flagged, they're the ones who manage the charities. They're the ones who sign the papers. They'll be the first ones invited to a deposition." He smiled, a thin, cold line. "If there's ever a problem, they're the ones who go to court, not us." In the hotel room upstairs, I could picture it. Agent Levin, her headset on, listening to the feed. She would be looking at Blake. She would be looking at the screen capture from Camille's laptop, which now showed Damien's private banking portal. "Wait for it," I could almost hear her say. "Wait for him to hit the transfer button, and then we close the show." Damien pulled out his phone, his thumbprint unlocking the screen. He was so relaxed, so confident in his power, that he was initiating the largest illegal transfer of his career at a dinner table, surrounded by people. He opened his private banking app. On the screen, I saw the name of the account he selected, Luna Flores Charity Holdings. My name, the name he had twisted into a weapon against me. In the hotel room upstairs, I knew what Rachel and Jordan were seeing. A perfect, high-resolution, real-time feed of Damien's screen, captured by the tiny scanner hidden in Camille's silver lapel pin. They were watching his fingers tap. They saw him authorize the transfer. They watched the flowchart as millions of laundered dollars cascaded out of the shell companies bearing my name, and my brother's, and poured into the final destination a single, anonymous, offshore account in his name alone. The transaction was pending. This was the moment. Klein, the investor, leaned in, the smoke from his cigar hanging heavy in the air. He thought this was all just a clever, secret game. "So, Damien," he rumbled, his voice a low drawl, "you've built a tight ship. But if this thing ever springs a leak, if it all blows up, who burns first?" Damien laughed. It was a sound I knew well. It was the sound of his complete, arrogant, drunken satisfaction. My wire, and Noah's, were catching every syllable. "Who do you think?" he said, gesturing to me with his scotch. "That naive little counselor. Of course, all heart, no head." He chuckled again. "Her and that rehab brother of hers, they owe me their lives. They're grateful. They're stupid. They trust me like God." He leaned in closer to Klein, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that was like a shout in my ear. "I taught them never to ask questions. I taught them that my world was too complicated for them. So now—" He took a sip. "If a lawyer ever comes knocking, I just look shocked. I raise my hands. I say, I've been betrayed by the people I tried to save." I heard his words, his true voice, buzzing in the tiny flesh-colored earpiece the FBI had given me. It was the voice of the man who had held my hand in that dusty bookstore. The voice of the man who had named a scholarship after my father. And it was the voice of my jailer, the last, stupid, sentimental part of me that had tried to find a reason for his cruelty, that had tried to remember the man I married shriveled, turned to ash, and died right there at the table. I glanced at Noah. He was standing by the wall, a silver water pitcher in his hand, his face a perfect, blank mask of service. But when Damien called our mother an unfortunate liability, a woman who can be managed with a few $100s a month, I saw Noah's hand clench. The pitcher shook, and water sloshed onto the tray. He was going to break. I caught his eye. I didn't smile. I didn't plead. I just looked at him. One short, sharp look. Not yet. Hold on. He saw me. He took a single, shuddering breath. He held. Then, an unexpected gift. Klein, the investor, tapped the ash from his cigar. You talk a good game, Damien. You paint yourself as the victim. He looked at Damien, his eyes shrewd. Just don't forget that phone call we had last week. The words were simple, but in my ear, the FBI command post exploded. Pull the Klein audio, Jordan Blake's voice snapped. The proffer he gave us, pull it now. I understood. Klein wasn't just an investor. He was a rat, trying to save himself. He had been recording Damien all along. Damien wasn't the only one building a case. In the main ballroom, just outside our velvet curtains, the slick video presentation for Bright Wave came to an end. The massive screen changed, showing a simple slide. Thank you to our sponsors. In my ear, Rachel's voice was cold, sharp, and final. He hit confirm. The transaction is complete. We have it all, now. The main doors to the ballroom, two massive oak panels, crashed open. It was not a SWAT team, it was a wave. The men and women who had been serving champagne, the valets who had been parking the luxury cars, the hotel staff in their burgundy blazers, they moved as one, dark uniforms under their civilian clothes, weapons drawn, badges flashing. A short, deafening burst from the hotel fire alarm went off, a deliberate blast of sound to cover the initial shouts and create total confusion. Rachel Levin was in the center of it all. She was on the low stage, her badge held high, her voice cutting through the panic. FBI, nobody move. The music stopped. A woman screamed. A chair clattered to the floor. Damien Cole, Levin's voice boomed. You are under arrest for federal wire fraud, money laundering, and aggravated identity theft. Everyone else, stay in your seats. In our private room, the velvet curtains were ripped aside. Two agents, who had been standing guard outside our door dressed as hotel security, were on Damien before he could even push his chair back. He panicked. The mask of the hero, the philanthropist, the victim. It didn't just crack, it vaporized. This was the real man, a terrified, cornered coward. He reacted exactly as he had rehearsed. He pointed at me, his fingers shaking, his eyes wild with betrayal. It was her Luna. She set up all the funds, I just trusted her. She's the one. But at that exact second, the massive screen on the stage behind Rachel Levin, visible to everyone in the ballroom and in our private room, changed. The sponsor logo was gone. It was replaced by the grainy, green-tinted footage from the ficus tree at the Elysian. And then, the crystal-clear audio from my wire, from Noah's button, from right now, his own voice, amplified by the hotel's speaker system, filled the dead silence. If there's ever a problem, they're the ones who go to court, not us. A new clip. That naive little counselor and that rehab brother of hers. A final clip, his voice dripping with arrogance. They burn first. My hands are clean. The entire room, his entire world, all the investors he had charmed, all the colleagues who had envied him, heard it. They heard the raw, unvarnished confession. The silence that followed was so deep it was deafening. The men at our table who had been laughing with him seconds before now slid their chairs back, a physical motion of separation, as if he were diseased. Camille stood up, with a quiet, deliberate grace. She picked up her chair, moved it 1 foot to her left, and sat down, directly beside me, a silent, public, and final declaration of her allegiance. The agents yanked Damien's hands behind his back. The sharp, mechanical zip of the plastic cuffs tightening was the loudest sound in the world. He twisted, cuffed, looking back at me. His face was a mask of confusion and rage. He was searching my eyes. He was expecting the hysterical wife. He was expecting tears. He was expecting me to scream, to beg, to save him. He got nothing. I just looked at him. My face was not angry. It was not hateful. It was not sad. It was blank. He was a stranger, a badly written character in a story I was finally closing. One of the uniformed police officers, seeing Noah in his black and white uniform, moved toward him. "You, kid, get your hands up. Stand down, officer." Rachel Levin's voice cut across the room. She walked right past Damien. She put a firm, protective hand on Noah's shoulder. She spoke loud enough for everyone at the table, for Klein, for Damien, to hear clearly. "Noah Flores is a cooperating witness for the federal government," she announced. "He is under our protection." The investors who had seen my brother as nothing but furniture now stared, their mouths open. Noah just stood there, his shoulders back, and let out the breath he had been holding for years. They led Damien out. They walked him past our table, past the half-eaten, expensive desserts, past the champagne glasses, past the life he had built on our stolen names. I didn't watch him go. I stood up. I smoothed the front of my simple navy dress. I turned my back on him. My silence was my victory speech. Outside, the heavy Houston air was finally breaking, a cool wind smelling of the coming rain. The flashing red and blue lights of the police cars painted the wet pavement, reflecting off the hotel's glass facade. It was just the three of us, me, Noah, and Camille, standing on the curb, wrapped in thin hotel blankets an agent had given us. We were all shaking. It wasn't fear anymore. It was the aftershock. It was the adrenaline draining away. The feeling of stepping out of a 5-year-long car crash. For a full minute, we just stood there, listening to the crackle of police radios. Noah was the first to speak. He let out a shaky, broken laugh. "So," he said, his voice hoarse, "what do you think Mommy's going to say when she finds out her son's new job was as an undercover waiter for the FBI? I looked at him, his face pale and exhausted in the flashing lights, and I laughed. It wasn't a polite, tight, penthouse laugh. It was a real one. From my stomach. It was rusty, and it hurt my throat. But it was real. Camille pulled her blanket tighter. "I don't know about you two," she said, her voice thin. "But I want to go eat something terrible, something cheap, greasy, and with no dress code. A meal that wasn't a performance, a meal for 3 survivors who had just escaped the director from hell." I looked back at the hotel entrance. I saw them putting Damien into the back of a dark, windowless federal car. His shadow, once so large it had blotted out my son, looked small and insignificant as the heavy door slammed shut. I turned away from the hotel. I faced the street. I didn't know what the newspapers would say tomorrow. I didn't know what the trial would look like, or what would happen to the money. I didn't know what was next. But as I stood on that noisy, chaotic sidewalk, under the flashing lights, I knew one thing for certain. My life was no longer being written by Damien Cole. This time, I was holding the pen. Thank you so much for listening to this story. We'd love to know where you're tuning in from. So please drop a comment below and share your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe to Zoe Revenge Stories, like this video, and give us extra support by hitting that hype button so this story can be heard by even more people.